Hi, this is Cassiano Costa. I'm here at Costa Performance in Boca Raton. This is our first episode from the podcast. The idea of the podcast is brought by a great colleague of mine, Claudio Cotter, who is around me here. So we might get some help in the questions from him. Right now, you can see on the live as well that we are here. So the idea of the live will be for 5-10 minutes, so you guys can interact with some questions that we're gonna debate on the podcast. But after that, to see the whole episode, we're gonna distribute on our YouTube channel, Instagram channel, and Spotify, and probably advertise on LinkedIn too, so you guys can take a look. Why the podcast? We think we are very lucky and fortunate to be in an area where the professional elite and the junior elite sports is very, very rich. So not only in terms of wealth, but amount, in terms of the seeking for development of performance. Like Claudio, originally from Brazil, we were fortunate to work with high performance there too. But unfortunately, because of different conditions that go from the financial to the structure of the way the sport is on the country, it's not very easy to survive and to succeed on the performance field. Whereas here in Boca, we have everything, at our disposal. We were fortunate and blessed to develop our center 5 years ago, being capable to see different athletes. Obviously, we are more known for the racket sports population, but we do also work with different sports, most of them rotational, hockey and soccer, basketball. We had some track and field athletes. We're initiating our running group, rowing, basketball, even gymnastics we were able to help in the past, UFC. All of these athletes, they share one thing in common. They are looking for excellence, no matter the level they are currently or the level they are about to reach. The good thing of sports here in the US specifically is even if you don't follow fully the path of the professional life, you still have a great chance of play college sports, which is very competitive, gives you great benefits, including education. So we are really, really fortunate to being able to tap and touch so many of these athletes. If you ever come to our center, you see plenty of flags from different areas of the world, because also there is a massive international population who comes to practice and compete here. You see several pennants of different colleges, athletes that at some point we had intervention on their career, on their sports life, and now they are representing, or they represented one of the most important colleges here in the US. Now, on this first episode, we'll try to touch base on periodization. If you're not familiar with the term, I believe nowadays most of the people involved in sports have a good idea what this is. But to simplify, is dividing the training regimen in periods where either you're going to develop certain capacities, either you're going to develop certain capacities in certain ways, either you're going to develop some game strategy, whatever it is, but always based on the main competition, or like the racket sports on the tour, on the events that athlete will be playing on the tour. Why do we consider that type of planning important? Well, someone once said, right, fail to prepare is prepare to fail, right? So by planning, we can decrease the chance of event to happen. By planning, you can increase the chance of success on sports regimen. And that is valid not only for the technical piece, but also for, we are more involved, the strength and conditioning. Our job is not only to develop the performance of the athlete, but also to, as much as we can, because those variables are not so easy to be controlled, to prevent the injuries, right? Or to help to prevent injuries. I like to always say that a happy sportsman, a happy athlete is playing his or her sport, right? He's not being in rehabilitation. Rehabilitation also can be part of his program when needed, but the most we avoid that. And that's a nice cross among the professionals that take care of the health and the performance of the athlete. So either being the strength and conditioning, the athletic trainer, the physical therapy, chiropractor, osteopath, whoever is involved on his or her team, either being an individual sport or a team sport, it's very important that those professionals, they are on the same page, trying their best in order to, one, improve performance to making sure that the injuries are prevented or as much as avoidable they can be. And to begin with that, back in the days and the generation I used to play, my own sport was soccer, we had that concept of training more is what makes us better. Even people wrote the 10,000 hours rule and some other no pain no gain type of philosophy. More and more we understand that it's not necessarily the amount but the quality and the efficiency, because one can be several hours trying to hit a golf ball, and if the person try and hit the whole time with the same mistake on the swing, probably no matter how much time that person will invest trying to hit the ball, it won't be as effective as if the person train a certain amount of hours with certain targets and assessments and then improve one thing at a time, but respecting their own level of fatigue, etc., etc. So that's the idea today here, where those topics of periodization are important in sport. We're going to talk about macro, meso, and microcycles, which were a Russian terminology for the fathers of periodization, Matveyev and the guys before him. And we're going to address a lot of that for the racket sports, just because it's our day-to-day operation here. Our facility counts now with 90% of the athletes in some racket sport, and by these 90%, I might have 90% of them playing tennis. Well, so let's see how periodization starts in sport. First of all, the track and field athletes were the first ones, along with the swimmers, taking benefit of periodization, because they had cycle of competition that would make more sense for, okay, how do we peak for performance? If my competition is 1 year from now, 2 years from now, how can I organize the training in a way that when that time comes, I'm at the peak of my performance? So some researchers back in the day, Sales being one with adaptation law, and then Verkhoshansky with the training here in the US, or Eastern Europeans that came to the US, Tudor Bompa, Esteban Bali. So all those guys, they try to understand through the physiology what would be the effect of training. And that's when the term overcompensation and undercompensation, supercompensation came, meaning that the body will react to the stimuli done on the training, and then as a reaction, it will adapt better than status before. So if that is respected, and if that's divided correctly through the models of training, through the capacities being developed, through the rest work ratio, through the recovery among sets, yada yada, that would bring always that curve to improve the force, the velocity, all the physiological components of good performance. Whereas if I don't respect one of these sides, then probably we're gonna start going into the overtraining line, and that's where an athlete will be more prone for illness, injuries, etc., etc. For the people on the live, we're gonna cut now. Thanks for all the questions, and I hope to see you guys back on the full episode. Now, so how did they divide originally? So if the main competition is 1 year, to simplify the subject here, so that will be its macro cycle, right? So 12 months of training, competition. Now, how do I get in those 12 months? Then the mesocycles, they start participating on the importance of distribution, because now, okay, so the month 12 is the competition month, so probably we're gonna be deloading, we're gonna be stimulating power, whatever this is. We regress cycle by cycle and see what we want on that cycle. So cycle 12 needs to be peak, cycle 11 probably will be a certain type of transition, cycle 10 some type of stimulation, and so on. Now inside each month, we're gonna have the weeks, and then each week we're going to consider a microcycle. So now at that week, so let's go from week 1, let's say a year has 48 weeks, whatever, week 1 to week 48, I'll have 48 microcycles, right? So inside each microcycle, how many sessions will I have? What those sessions gonna work? What will be the intensity? When are the days of recovery? When are the days of assessment, etc. Okay, so you create the microcycle through training units. You see, you calculate that, and then you progress. Okay, I expect if I have those first 4 microcycles in a mesocycle, now for the second month, I would expect to be at this level working on those capacities, and that will be progressive or regressive because some cycles will be more a maintenance, will be more a deload type. Even the microcycles can be like that. But the way to distribute this is to make sure that the athlete can achieve the maximum of his potential or her potential with the minimum risk or potentially not even any incidence of an injury. That way he can compete freely. Now, problem is, again, that's for the ideal world, right? So as I said, when it was created, that was to base for track and field, swim, volleyball, volleyball was a little later, wrestling, Olympic weightlifting. So more cyclic events that I would have a more static competition, or at least a smaller number of main competitions. And if you see, most of the cycles were based on the Olympic cycle. So they were kind of 4-year cycles where the athlete would have 2-3 competitions or 4 maybe into these 4 cycles that would be considered like a preparatory competitions, and then main competition as in the Olympic final date. The problem is, when you go to other sports, and then I'm gonna use like soccer as an example, right? The players have a tournament that is almost year long, and 2 or 3 competitions perhaps, and they might be playing, so that'll be their main event, they might be playing twice in a week, sometimes even 3 times on a week. So if the club is involved in a competition that is the national level, then a competition of continental level, and then sometimes they have their own country cups. So it's quite complicated. So how to use these previous concepts if the competition now is not in 3 years, but it's happening 2-3 times a day. Now let's make this a little more chaotic, and let's think of the racket sport. So I'm gonna give an example here in squash and tennis. A professional athlete ranked top 10 might compete between 17 and 20 weeks of the year, okay? Which is a lot already. Not only that, but it's not one event, because that player will play in a week, potentially once every day. In the case of the Grand Slams in tennis, which is a 2-week period, they're gonna play every other day. So now we're talking about what is main competition? When do we need these guys like a fresh? What is the recovery applied? So that made the periodization take a totally different level and different methods. So in the past, we would be very familiar with the block method or some linear methods or some very simplified undular methods. And now we have to be absolutely pendular. Why is that? Because now I have to do inside a mesocycle, I have to do microcycles that involve pushing the athlete and microcycles that involve refreshing the athlete. But keep in mind, he'll still be practicing the sport. So how to perform that, how to mix the court, the technical part, and the strength and conditioning part. So that involves a lot of science, that involves a lot of pieces on this puzzle, that involves the need of so much communication between coach and strength and conditioning. In the past, when I started working in tennis, that's back in 2004 almost, it was almost 2 different entities. You had the coach doing one thing, you had the fitness trainer doing something else, and only when the athlete got injured, the physical therapist would participate in that conversation, that would be a mess, because maybe the day I worked so much on the shoulder of the athlete, the coach went there and worked so much on his serve, and the physical therapist, in order to prevent the injury, also did a lot of shoulder exercises. And at the end of the day, we were creating almost a worst atmosphere just for lack of communication. We all had our periodizations per se, we just didn't have the communication of that. That's why now, overall, the strength and conditioning or the performance coach or the athletic trainer, those are the guys that might have, along with the technical coach, a hand on controlling the loads. Okay? Why controlling the loads? Because the body needs stimulation. That's a fact. Body needs stimulation to improve, but it needs also similar importance for the recovery. Because if I only stimulate and not recovery, we're not machines. And even machines will break at some point, right? Like the body will just fall apart. Now, the idea of the periodization is to bring the best way possible to control, manipulate, and design that type of stimulus and that type of recovery, and when it happens. Nowadays, it's a bit easier than in the past, because in the past, we would rely only on visually what we're saying on the athlete, verbally what is he communicating to us in terms of fatigue and symptoms, and that was pretty much it. The chance of error were quite big. Nowadays, we have so many tools that can facilitate us to, one, control the load that this athlete is receiving on the training. Check the impact that this load is having on his or her body. Third, checking a lot of the physiological variables that could dictate to us, athlete is closer to peak, athlete is closer to injury or to fail. So with that, I won't promote any brand here, but you have devices that are very easy to calculate. So I give an example. We can now check the athlete comes to the center. We have how much he or she is left, how much was spent in each phase of the sleep. So understand what it was like recovery, what it was, mental recovery, what it was for freshness. We take a look on the heart rate variability. We understand what level of physical stress and mental stress this athlete is. We can calculate even a respiratory frequency, so we have an idea on management of stress. We have ways to see through some power events, jumping on the platform or using a device that calculates acceleration on the barbell. We understand for that day what's the level of freshness or burnout the athlete can be. Because one thing that in the past we wouldn't consider much, and I think nowadays many athletes brought to the table is, let's call the mental health. And an athlete can be extremely fast, extremely powerful. If on the day to perform, mentally he's not connected, whatever is the problem, he will not perform, she will not perform. So for us, it's good to understand, because sometimes the variables show a decent amount of physiological freshness, but then when we see on the performance tests, the athlete's not there. The athlete's below what we expect from him or her. And those are environmental factors or external factors that could be from fighting with a boyfriend up to my son got sick last night. So things that are not necessarily they would share immediately with us, but we understand that they also going to impact the performance, and it is good to understand. And it's good to act over it. And when you have everything planned, so let's say I have a microcycle plan, and there's a microcycle that I'm gonna push the athlete, is a microcycle on the plus that we're gonna, really try to build up something with the athlete. But that week, let's say he or she got sick. We understand that now we need to do an adaptation. And that adaptation would not be necessarily only in 1 week, but that adaptation maybe can impact 2-3 months of the training. If I don't have that organized, if I don't have that right in front of me, if I'm just throwing dice to see what happens, then that will be an issue. So that's why that type of organization can be very, very important for us. One thing that also can show us is a little bit the excess sometimes, I'm not criticizing anyone here, please don't kill the messenger, but sometimes the excess of technical training, okay? Or let me rephrase that intense technical training. As coaches, and it doesn't need to be a technical coach, even here on the gym, we always want to push the athletes to the limit, right? And especially in the older culture, and I say older culture, I'm including myself on that, because I was built on that generation, and my initial professional activity was under that type of thinking as well. Is, you know, the more the better. The more I push, the more I compete, the more I train, the more I spend trying to work on my craft. And we try to understand that sometimes if you don't have the physical build up for receiving that load, or if you don't sometimes exchange the hours you're putting to build your technical craft on build your engine, your machine, your body, your tempo, that can also bring for a non-successful plan. So it's very important. I'll give an example. In tennis, it's quite hard, especially on the professional level, because if calculations are proper, they are in competition almost 75% of the available time. And in training, 25%. Now, when I say training, everything that they do in training is on that 25%. So that's the technical training, that's the physical training, that's the rehab, that's the mental training. That whatever he does on top to get better, his yoga, Pilates, whatever. So you got that 25% that you have available, and you have to create something. Who takes priority? As a rule of thumb, the sport will always take priority on that. But in some blocks, when there is good communication, there is good planning, when there is a good sequence of events, different parts will take priority. Maybe the physical therapists will come to us and say, hey, he had that ab injury in the beginning of the year. We're now transferring from clay to grass. We will need a much more action on the serving. Perhaps it would be nice if we can spend more time between myself and the strength and conditioning coach, building up his or her core to prevent possible issues during competition time. So that's why, you know, I'm a big follower of spending time on your technical event. Don't take me wrong, but just, you know, when you have the organization and the understanding of what's going on, sometimes might be more practical or more efficient if the athlete goes spend more time building his or her body. Another example here, especially in young athletes, there is always that, okay, let's try a new racket, let's add weight on the racket, let's try a new tension on the strings, let's try a new grip. And that's all valid, right? That's all possible solutions for a problem that the specialist is seeing. Now, all those changes also bring changes for the body. So if there is a better communication, if there is a better approach, so maybe I'll sit to the coach and say, hey, you know what, he's about to compete in 2-3 weeks. I don't know if that change maybe will bring too much tension on his, her shoulder, elbow, and wrist. So perhaps we can use that a little closer to the preseason, so we can build up something for his upper body, and then we do that change. What do you think? So that type of communication is fundamental when we're talking about, you know, how to separate hours for court, hours for physical conditioning, hours for physical therapy. Now, again, it's very dynamic in tennis, right? And if you guys are listening to me here and you are a professional of the sport, like a tennis, squash, now pickleball, I know in Europe very developed padel, there are many variables that dictate the schedule of an athlete. Okay, I'm talking about now competitive schedule. Because one is the ranking, right? Which ranking is that person at? Second, like more in tennis, the surface. Third, sometimes, you know, you have two similar tournaments, but the location, the logistics, like a South American player in terms of tennis, he's gonna do during February more the clay tournaments in South America, whereas an European player probably gonna join the hard court in Middle East. So, you know, that involves hours on the airplane, jet lags, etc. As much as you can have that in advance is easier to plan better, but sometimes there are big changes. A player that is, you know, in a ranking that we call unstable ranking, meaning he can or cannot be in a certain tournament. So I give you an example that happened to me in the past. When we were training Jenson Brooksby, he was skipping or marching really quick on the ranking. And one time he's supposed to play, probably I'm not fully right on the sequence of events I'm gonna tell you now, but something like, oh, he goes to Switzerland, then back to Sweden, and then to India to play. Turns out he got in a much bigger tournament in South Africa. So he goes from the US to South Africa, to Sweden, to India. And turns out that not only that, but he did well on all the tournaments. So he played in 3 weeks, probably, I wanna say something close to the 15 matches in totally different jet lag or time zones, and with an amount of traveling absurd, you know? Now, it was so connected, the thing between his coach and ourselves here, so it was very manageable because, okay, he had a big change on his original calendar, on his original schedule. Now, that will impact everything we're gonna do next. So impact the following competitions, will impact the way we had planned the training, because he was coming back from an injury. We didn't expect him going all further on all competitions, and we had a different idea on the blocks, on the cycles, right? So that's why the beauty of having that pre-planned, having that organized, and, you know, trying the best. At the end of the day, the person getting more benefit out of it is the athlete himself, because good minds, specialists are putting together a good plan that will try to, you know, get them in great performance and far from injuries. Now, one proof that what I'm saying is a good thing, if you see the longevity of the athletes nowadays, right? Every sport push now, you know, when I played 32, 33, guys in soccer were, okay, this is it. Beautiful life. And, you know, most of the sports were on the 32, 33 tops to finish their career. And now they are all, you know, pushing up to 40 years old. You see Cristiano Ronaldo, Djokovic, LeBron James, and other great athletes, you know, performing for so long, for so many years. Ideally, if you have the chance of have a team that can do that for you, obviously is always perfect. If you don't and you get interested, please find us on our Instagram, Costa Performance, website, www.costaperformance.com. We've been, in the last 20 years, helping lots of athletes in different sports to achieve their performance. But the main message today is that with a good organization, with good planning, you can achieve performance, stay free of injury, and perform your sport top level. Hope you guys enjoyed.